Good morning. This is week 3 of the PHP, and we're doing PHP Intro. My name is Charles William Marshall. I go by Bill. And it's my email address and cell phone. Cell phone used during business hours, but the email is the preferred way to set up a meeting. Alright, so we're here for CIT253. It's a 3-hour course. And as always, Blackboard is the official site for assignments and to get and turn in assignments. So what does PHP stand for? It was originally derived from personal home page tools. People got tired of hand coding all the HTML in so early days. They came up with PHP as a way to automate some of that. It now stands for Hypertext Preprocessor. And people claim it's a recursive algorithm. Okay, the main good news, or one of the big news in my opinion, is that it's open source, and it's an alternative to Microsoft's ASP or Active Server Pages technologies. Personal opinion, once you enter into using Microsoft ecosystems, the license fees never stop. Now, having said that, many of you will work for companies who have, in early days or before you arrive, decide that Microsoft is the ecosystem of preference. And when you're in that situation, you will have to learn to live and pay their licensing fees. But PHP is an open source solution that we're talking about today. And many of Microsoft's servers will run PHP. And as with ASP, PHP script is embedded in the web pages along with its HTML. Before a page is sent to the user that requested it, the PHP server calls PHP to interpret and perform the operations called for in the scripts. And we're going to talk a lot more about that as we move through this week 3 course. Alright, so how much is it used? Well, PHP is used on 78.2% of the websites whose server-side programming languages W3 Techs Com knows. Okay, and that's the address of these people, so you can decide if you believe them or not. But the fact is, PHP is on the predominant number of websites. And if you look, their penetration is fairly constant. There are versions of PHP, and the world's now shifting from PHP version 5 to PHP version 7. PHP's done a pretty good job of having backward compatibility, so if you've written version 5 PHP code, it will probably run on version 7. But as with all technologies, it is critical that you not marry any one version of any one technology, because the world will move off, and so you should always attempt to stay current with your current, and you should pick paths that allow backward compatibility so that you don't have to rewrite your code all the time, which is another good reason to think open source. Alright, if you look at a plot of, in this direction being fewer sites and many more sites, this one being by low traffic sites and this one being by high traffic sites, this is the way that it falls out. AppsNet is maybe a little bit on higher traffic sites but a lot less used. Java is even less used but on very high traffic sites. And so it's just kind of good as you're picking a horse to ride. Getting in the mainstream is really important, because it's terrible to have spent a lot of time writing code and then find out that provider of your infrastructure decided that they were going to sell out or go bankrupt or whatever. PHP is an amazing popular language. It's powerful enough to be the biggest, underlying the biggest blogging system in the web, WordPress. It's deep enough to run the largest social networking, Facebook. And unlike ASP, PHP is free, offering under an open source license. PHP is an intuitive server-side scripting language. Now, intuitive is in the eye of the beholder, but I think you will see that it is really easy to use. PHP consists of the scripting language and the interpreter that can do something with that language. Like a lot of other scripting languages, PHP enables web developers to define the behavior and logic they need in a web page. These scripts are enabled into HTML documents that are served by the web server. Okay, so what is a PHP file? PHP can contain text, HTML, cascading style sheets, JavaScript, and PHP code. The PHP code is executed on the server, and as a result is returned to the browser as plain HTML. Now, it says plain HTML, but I have written PHP to generate JavaScript dynamically, which really gets to be fairly cool and fairly mind-bending as you try to realize where you're writing the code. But the fact that you're executing on the server gives you a lot of power and needs to be thought through as you're writing the code. Some servers now allow PHP to run outside the web server. I know people who are writing PHP and executing PHP on Linux boxes, and they're doing that instead of writing shell scripts. Okay, well, so what can PHP do? Well, it can generate dynamic page content, which is kind of what we thought about when we first heard about it. But it can create, open, read, and write, delete, and close files on the server so that it can send mail and log responses and do anything that you can do with a computer. PHP can collect form data, which we'll talk about a lot more. It can send and receive cookies, which are debatable and problematic, but are probably necessary in the modern world. PHP can add, delete, and modify data in your databases. It can be used to control user access. It can encrypt data. And I said this a little bit before, but it's true. It can do almost anything you can imagine possible with a computer. And because it's controlled from a browser, that gives your browser a lot of power. So why use PHP? PHP runs on various platforms. It runs in Windows, Linux, Unix, Mac OS X, and almost anything else that people come up with. If they're going to deploy a web server on it, they're going to need to run PHP just because of the vast majority of pre-existing code that's out there. PHP is compatible with almost all the servers used today, Apache, Microsoft's, and etc. PHP supports a wide range of databases. PHP is free. Free can't be oversold. Download it from the official PHP resource, www.php.net. And there's a lot of people out there, because PHP is so popular, they will say, oh, well, come to our site to get PHP. And they'll drop cookies on you and do all sorts of nefarious things. Get it from www.php.net. PHP is easy to learn and runs efficiently on the server side. Okay, so what's the newest and greatest thing is PHP 7. And it's faster than our previous popular stable releases, PHP 5.6. PHP has improved its error handling. PHP supports stricter type declarations for function arguments. PHP supports new operators like the spaceship operator. And the truth is, I don't know what the spaceship operator does, but it supports it. And if you want to see more about it, you can go to this URL. I'm not going to read it out to you, but you have access to this PowerPoint, so you can cut and paste it into a browser and go there. And that's your PHP intro that's part of the Week 3 CIT253 3-credit hour course. We're talking about data-driven web pages, and if you have any questions, contact me at that email address and ask to set up a GoToMeeting, and I'll be interested in your comments of ways to improve this. Thank you.